Excellent. Well, welcome to the Road Safety Audit course. My name's Ken Beer. I'll introduce myself a little bit as we go, and we'll introduce Marissa also, who you can see on screen there. But we'll cover off a little bit of the admin logistics of the course now and tell you how you can participate. You'll notice Marissa hit the record button. The reason we record the sessions, well, there's a few reasons. One is if you have to miss a session, life is chaotic sometimes and you can't get to the live session, you can watch the recording and catch up that way. And also, there might be a case study or a particular thing you want to rewatch. So we provide you with those recordings and you can go back and have a look. I'll give a little content warning here. We do look at some road crash scenes, nothing overly graphic, and we're simply using those to look at what could we do to prevent crashes or lessen the severity of these crashes, and what can we learn from these incidents. But if that's something that could disturb you, I just flag that now. Okay, so this is Marissa. Why don't you introduce yourself, Marissa?
Hello, yes, lovely to meet you all virtually. My name is Marissa Garisto. I'm training coordinator at Safe System Solutions. I'll be online with you during today's session and for most of our module webinars throughout the course. I'll be here in the background, just giving Ken a hand and monitoring the chat and getting all your questions over to Ken during the sessions. If you do have any admin issues or logistical issues or any questions for me, please feel free to contact me anytime. You are free to talk to me in the chat, or you can email me directly. You probably already have our email address. It's training@safesystemsolutions.com.au. It is there on the screen for you, just below my photo there. So if you do have any questions at all during the entire course, you're welcome to get in touch with me at any time. We strongly encourage you to engage with us during the sessions. We are, as Ken mentioned earlier, in case you've missed it, we are in a webinar format. So we can't see you. You can definitely see us, but you can chat to us in the chat. We have the chat function just there. You can say highlighted on your screen. Feel free to pop in any of your comments during the sessions in the chat or questions. We also have a Q&A function. It'll probably be down below in your settings towards the bottom of your screen, also highlighted there where Ken's popped in a nice arrow. You can also pop in your questions there and I'll monitor those and I'll get them over to Ken during the session when he has a moment to pause. With the chat function, there is a little setting there. You can either chat to everybody just with the there's a little arrow there, drop down arrow. You can chat to everyone. You can also just chat to hosts and panelists, which will just come to myself and Ken, and I can monitor your comments and questions there. If your tech fails, which, it's IT and things tend to go wrong, we're in a live session. Hopefully Ken's internet doesn't fail on us today, because then we'll be in strife. But if anything does happen, if you're having any IT issues in the background, the easiest fix usually is just to log out of Zoom, leave the webinar, and then just jump back on. It usually fixes the problem 99% of the time. Otherwise, a good old reboot might do the trick. But if all else fails, we do have the PDF slides on our learning management system, which hopefully you're all a little bit familiar with. We've sent over some settings on getting you onto the system, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Now that's about it, I think.
Yeah, there is a raise your hand button as well, which we will use a little bit later. We'll have some opportunity for some of you to speak. If you really wanted to talk, you can raise your hand and we have the ability to let you unmute yourself. There's no option to get a camera on, but we may use that. But the chat is really important, and the Q&A, keep using that. We don't get to sort of network over lunch and those sort of things on these online courses. So chatting to everybody through the chat and putting your observations in there is a really good way to do that. And I'll be using that for you to answer questions as well. Now, you mentioned the learning management system, Marissa. What's that?
Yeah, so our learning and management system is basically our online portal where we house all of the resources that you'll need to complete the course. So you would have received, most of you hopefully have received your login details from us. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, please shout out to me and I'll get you registered on our system. But yes, we'll get you we'll show you a bit around the LMS a little bit later on, but on there we've got some resources and some little tasks for you to do throughout the course. So looking forward to showing you through a little bit later.
Yes, and you have to have access to the learning management system to pass the course. So if you haven't got access to that, you haven't been in there, make sure you do find access. Email training@safesystemsolutions.com.au if you are struggling there. Okay, so presenters, well, you have myself. My name's Ken Beer. I'm the Principal Engineer at Safe System Solutions. My contact details are there. Also threw in there a little QR code to my LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me. I try and share a bit of road safety engineering content, road safety audit content, and the like. Got my colleague, Max McCardle, who will also be involved in some of the sessions. He has prepared some of the content. He's the active transport lead at Safe System Solutions, so has been digging into the latest and greatest associated with pedestrians, cyclists especially, and making sure we design our infrastructure as safely as possible for those road users. So all our contact details there. If you've got those questions around the technical detail, you can shoot it through to us. Of course, you can still just shoot it through to training@safesystemsolutions.com.au and they'll forward it on to us as well. Now, we do a couple of little things to try to keep you engaged. I know it's very tempting to do those emails on the side or finish off that roundabout design or finish off that ministerial report that you're wanting to do. We've got a few things. So one of them is Wally the Wombat. Wally the Wombat warning sign you can see there on the screen. That will appear a certain number of times for every module. And a module is like a session, 2-hour session that we run. And you've got to keep count of how many times that little Wally the Wombat warning sign appears. And that'll be one of your quiz questions at the end of the module. How many times did Wally appear? So keep a track of Wallies. There's a few other things. So we do have a competency benchmark for this course. You have to achieve a certain benchmark in order to get that successful completion certificate of this road safety audit course. So we need you to attend 4 out of the 5 live webinars. As I mentioned earlier, if you have to miss one, we understand, and you can catch up on that through the recording. Now, if for some reason you can't attend more than one, just email training@Safe System Solutions and they'll have a chat to you about that. We need you to, of course, complete all the tasks that we set, and we need you to get an 80%. So you will be graded on the quizzes and the assignments. So a senior road safety auditor will be marking your assignments, providing you with feedback and a mark. And if you don't achieve over 80%, you will be asked to resubmit that. You will get lots of feedback. And the other thing is that we offer one-on-one coaching there. So if you are struggling with a concept or struggling to get to that benchmark, we will help you and we will happily spend time with you working through that via a Zoom or a Teams chat or phone calls or whatever it is. Really, I always say if you fail this course, I have failed this course, and I don't like failing anything. So I will work with you to build your competency up to that point. Now, there are no really tricky concepts in this. It's a course about the process of road safety auditing, but we do need to make sure everybody has that solidly in their mind. So you need to get that 80% pass mark. Marissa, did you want to say something?
Oh, well, have a look at where I am. Look at what's behind me, everyone. I'm in the prize pit. And I'm in the prize pit because we like to give out prizes on this course. We like to have a bit of fun. Ken's going to ask you lots of questions and get you involved in all sorts of little online activities throughout the session. So please get involved, and he likes to see some good answers, and we like to give away some prizes to the great answers. But we also really welcome some great questions. We like to troop Ken up every now and then, and keep him on his toes. So pop any of your any questions you have in the chat, and Ken's favorite questions get prizes, and I may or may not send you a Superman or a Batman in the background. No, I won't, but I'll send you some really cool little safe system solutions items that we have, and trivia. We have some trivia, don't we, Ken?
Yeah, that's right. If you arrive a little bit early for these online sessions, Marissa runs some trivia. Could be general knowledge trivia, could be road trivia, and give away a few prizes before the sessions even begin to entice you to arrive and log in a little bit early and get yourselves ready. So pop your questions into the chat, answer my questions, and you're a chance to win a prize.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's covered off the admin logistics. Before we kick it off officially, I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the many lands we're running this training on. I think, Marissa, we've got people from other countries, people logging in from all over the world. And
we absolutely do.
So welcome, everybody. And I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the different lands that you're on and that I'm on, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Okay. I'm going to jump into some content now. And if anybody does have any admin, logistics, management questions, just pop them into the chat. Marissa will be able to answer those. But you are here for the road safety audit course. And I'm going to start with some of the basics. But the end of this module, so at the end of this module, I want you to really understand what a road safety audit is and how it fits into the context and the life cycle of a road. We're going to talk about the difference between a road safety audit and a black spot investigation. And we're going to define risk and risk ratings in road safety audit. We're going to talk about the safe system, which is something you might be very familiar with, or it might be a concept you haven't heard too much about. And then we're going to dig into kinetic energy thresholds for different crash types. And finally, we'll be talking about some categorization of audit findings into safe system categories. So a bit to cover there. But this course really follows the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is Road Safety Audit. There's a picture of it there. It is freely available. If you log into Austroads, so you can freely set up a login to Austroads, then you can download all Austroads guides for free. And so I encourage you to do that. I'm really covering off the content within this, plus some information about specific jurisdictions' practices. Now, I was the specialist advisor to Austroads on this document in the latest update. And so I've got a good handle on what's in there, and we had lots of debates in there. So I can happily talk to you about some of those nuanced aspects of it. But that's what we'll be covering. There are older versions of that floating around. You might see them in your office or something. They've been superseded now, and we're on this this current one, the 2022 version. This course overall, so I told you before what's in this module, but the course overall is about the process of road safety auditing. So there is no possible way in a short period of time together here that we could teach everything you would need to know from a technical perspective to do road safety audits. And that, in fact, is a lifelong ongoing journey of continual learning. There's new technology that comes on board, new research, whatever. You're constantly building up that. And you build up lots of knowledge of these things associated with roads. But what we can teach is the process of road safety auditing. And that is our real focus for this course. Along the journey, I'm certainly going to give you some particular basic skills in looking for risks associated with technical designs and the like, but the process is the key focus of this course. We need to ensure that you're having a think about your road safety audits through this safe system lens. I'll explain that in detail. And I will use lots of examples of common issues arising in road safety audits. So that is, I'll be, using those to talk through the process, but you'll also go, oh, okay, I see, that's something I should keep an eye out for. We're going to make sure we consider all road users, cyclists, motorcyclists, heavy vehicles, pedestrians, cars, e-scooters, people in mobility devices, you name it, we're thinking about them. And we want to try to ensure that we've sort of switched that light bulb on for each road user. We're really going to try to get you to encourage road safety auditing as part of a good process, and of course answer any questions you have. Now there's a Wally. I'm helping you out here, but I'm not going to help you out any for the rest of the course, but keep your eye out for those sort of little Wallies that appear. Okay, now this diagram looks a bit scary. It is straight out of the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is the Road Safety Audit Guide. And it's trying to show how road safety audits fit in with all these other types of assessments and reviews that are out there. And you can see there, we've got sort of these safety visions, things like safe system principles, movement in place. Then we've got what we call proactive techniques, and road safety audits sit in that proactive technique, and I'll talk about that in a bit. We've got ones that are termed, in this document at least, predictive techniques, such as the ANRAM, OSRAP, IRR type things. I will give a prize. I'll start giving the prizes out. If somebody can tell me what OSRAP stands for. OSRAP. So pop that into the chat. First one into the chat to tell me what OSRAP stands for will get a prize. In there, you've got also things like safe system assessments, and then reactive techniques. Reactive techniques are looking at crashes, looking at crash clusters, looking at individual crashes, trying to say, well, what's gone wrong and how can we change things to improve that? Australian Road Assessment Program. There is our first prize winner, Queensline. Is that how I pronounce it? I'm not sure, but congratulations. You are our first prize winner. And so the suite of RAPs are the road assessment programs. And if you Google IRAP, well, you'll get two things. One, I think, is about internet security. The other one is about the International Road Assessment Program, which is a methodology to assess the risks on a road. And it takes into account lots of variables, speeds and different infrastructure and the like, and it spits out a score. And you can even put star ratings, like you star rate your fridge or your washing machine for energy rating, or somebody rates that. You could do the same for the safety of a road. Anyway, that sort of sits in what we call the predictive techniques. Road safety audit there is in a proactive technique. And so we don't need to be waiting for crashes to happen. We don't need to, it's not a set methodology. It has freedom for us to consider very nuanced contexts of roads and to then produce our assessment of risk. But I'll explain that in a lot more detail. I just wanted to show you that there's lots of things going on to try to make sure our roads and our projects are as safe as they possibly can. Now, you see up here the stages of a road, from sort of network corridor planning all the way through to operating and maintaining that road. Road safety audits fit really well into that. Once you've got a general idea you're going to do something, is it as safe as it possibly can be? What else can be done? And then through that detailed design and a little bit of general operation. But if you're out doing network corridor planning and general project development and program development work, I mean, tools such as OSRAP, and even safe system assessments are providing wonderful benefit in those early big picture decision making, and audits fit nicely after that. I'll talk more about that as we go. Oh, it's Tony. G'day, Tony. Okay. Okay. First, straight up, misunderstanding about road safety audit is that it is a check against standards. So a road safety audit is not just a standards review. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, when we design roads, we have all of these standards and guidelines that we can refer to. They tell us lots and lots of information. A road safety audit is not checking conformance with those documented standards and guidelines. right? That's not what it is. But the term audit gets a bit confusing, doesn't it? Because when we think of audit, we think of financial audit or something like that, which is very much, have you conformed with the law and the requirements? Okay. But a road safety audit is slightly different. A road safety audit is really looking for anything that is going to be built that could cause death or serious injury to a member of our community, regardless of whether it meets standards or not. Okay. Now, meeting standards is often a really good starting point for safety because those developing standards and guidelines do consider safety. But there are a lot of times out there where meeting the standards, absolutely meeting the standards, does not necessarily guarantee safety. Now, those could be situations where, for example, the standards are trying to balance out many different things. They've got this, they're thinking about costs and other, traffic flow and these sort of things. And so they balance things out. It could be that standards combine. So you might meet standards with one thing and then meet standards with another, but combined, it's a really unsafe scenario. It could also be that standard in the context that it's being proposed to be used is an unsafe thing. It's not been thought about in that context, right? So there's so many reasons why standards don't necessarily give us safe outcomes. So our job is to sort of think about that. There is a lot of aspects of road safety auditing where you identify something that doesn't meet standards and you're concerned about it, and you would report that too as well. So that is just saying, hey, that doesn't meet standards, we're concerned by it, and you report that. But there are certainly times, and I've done it many times in my long auditing career, where I've looked at something, I've gone, well, that meets standards, but I'm concerned about the safety of that. And I report that. And I'll even acknowledge that often in the audit finding. I'll say, while this meets standards, the audit team is concerned that, in this context, it will produce an unsafe outcome, and I elaborate on that. So a road safety audit is not a check against standards. You'll probably be doing some checking against standards as you go, but thinking broadly and trying to say, okay, when they build this or for this road, what could be a contributing factor to death and serious injury of our community as they use that area? So let's have a look at a specific scenario. And I'm going to go into a bit of technical detail here, but it's not, well, let me just run through it. Here you can see a tragic incident that happened on a fairly new road at the time. And the road is in Victoria, and I'll give a prize to anybody who can tell me what road this is. There's a few little clues in there. That's a very weighted towards the Victorians if you are there. So anybody who can tell me. So this is a fairly new road that was built, and this is the first fatality that occurred on this road. Now, this is where a truck here has left the road, gone through the barrier system, and collided with the overhead gantry here. Damien is correct. It is Eastlink. And prize there for Damien. So now Eastlink was, a huge project, had lots of money invested in it, great designs, and was subject to some auditing and the like. But let's have a think about this barrier system, okay? And this barrier system is a test level 3 barrier system. But even if it was a test level 4 barrier system, let's go think about a test level 4 barrier system. Does anybody know, well, either a test level 3 or a test level 4 barrier system, what weight of vehicle has it been tested for? So when I talk about test levels of barrier systems, it means that somebody has tested that barrier system in a test facility to see what weight of vehicle can it contain at a 25-degree angle and 100 kilometers an hour. So have a guess. You don't lose any points or anything for guessing in the live sessions. You're only marked in the quizzes after the session. So you're free to just guess. What weights are we talking about here for these vehicles? Pop your guesses in. So that barrier, not that individual barrier, but that type of barrier in that configuration has been tested, and we would expect it to contain a vehicle of a certain mass. So we've got a few guesses coming in. Looks like Tom has come in pretty close there with 2 ton for a test level 3 vehicle and an F-150 pickup truck. Well done there. So let's give Tom a prize. So this is, some of you might have heard the term MASH or NCHRP 350. These are particular test protocols. So the test level 3 is around that 2 ton, and the test level 4 is about 10 ton. Okay. So this vehicle, though, is going to weigh a lot more than that, right? So we do not expect that barrier system to actually contain that vehicle. So here's the vehicle that a test level 4 barrier system has been designed to contain. That's the 10-ton vehicle. So that's the one up from what Tom mentioned even. Okay, so understanding a little bit about what can you expect out of your infrastructure is important. Now, am I expecting every one of you to be barrier specialists as road safety auditors? No. You can pull people into your audit team that are barrier specialists. You can seek advice from others around barrier systems and get your head around it. But what I wanted to do with this example is show you that this met standards. Absolutely. No questions asked, this met standards. But one of our community members is dead now as a result of essentially making a minor mistake, leaving the road. Okay. And there's another real risk here that concerns me a lot. I mean, this concerns me a lot, don't get me wrong, but this also concerns me that there's possibility that that gantry could have come down over the road and we could have had even more fatalities and serious injuries associated with vehicles. Now, this met the standards, but what we want are road safety auditors that question the standards as well and say, well, do we need a barrier with a higher containment level around these gantries or around these areas where vehicles could fall onto roads, other roads, or into other areas? Do we need higher containment barrier systems in these sort of areas? And asking those questions. And that's what our job is to try to predict crashes before they happen and put forward ideas or thoughts around how we could mitigate that. Now, there is a sort of evolution of process here. And what you'll find is that these incidents happen, and sometimes for many, many years, we see these sorts of incidents, but finally the standards will shift. Road safety auditors play a role in that often, continually putting back, we should have higher containment around gantries and the like. You'll find now that at least in Australia, if you have a gantry over a road like this, it must have a higher containment of barrier system around that. But there's an example of meeting standards that hasn't guaranteed us safety. Let's have a look at another one here. And again, I'm going to use an example out of Victoria just because I had it handy. This is Chandler Highway Bridge, for those who know the area. This is the big paper mill site, massive, massive development, lots and lots of apartments and townhouses and shopping areas and the like being built. And as part of that, they are creating a new intersection to access in and out. Now we've got a big intersection that exists up here. So let me zoom in a little bit on this. And what you'll see here is that this is the proposed access. And this vehicle I've put in here is going along at 65 kilometers an hour. It's a 60 zone. Maybe they're going a little faster than that. And they just want to continue straight on through. And you can see they're in their straight on through lane there, and they carry on. And then all of a sudden, whoa, they're in a right turn lane. Okay. That is what we term a trap lane. And if I ever find out who named it trap lane, I'm going to give them a prize, because it's such a wonderful description of what happens. The driver is driving along, and then all of a sudden they're trapped. Now, we absolutely know that when you create a trap lane, we increase crashes around this area. So the driver is coming along, they realize they're about to be trapped, and they make high-risk maneuvers to get out of that trap. And we see a lot of sideswipe crashes, rear-end crashes around these areas. Those are lower severity crashes, but they are still something we would be concerned about as road safety auditors. Now, is this in the standards? I mean, it looks pretty obvious that you don't want to do this. Well, this is where Austroads and a lot of standards and guidelines around the world just really avoid making a call on this. They discourage it. They say, oh, you be careful if you're going to do it. But to flat out say you cannot build a trap lane does not exist in a lot of standards and guidelines around the world, and certainly not in Austroads. Now, why is that? Well, there's a lot of scenarios out there which are very, very challenging, and this is one. Okay, so when you're trying to build major infrastructure like this, it is super complicated. You've got services, land acquisition, you've got your traffic modeling, you've got community expectations. It's all, all these challenges as a designer, okay? And you're trying to squeeze it in this bit, and you've got budget constraints and all sorts of things, but you have to get this extra lane in. So our job as road safety auditors is kind of easy and kind of like you're kind of free, because all we have to do is talk about safety issues. Now, that being said, I'm always conscious that we're here to assist projects in doing the safest thing, assist them in doing the safest thing. So while I'm going to flag that this is a trap lane, and I'll tell you now, somebody designing a job of this size, they know there's a trap lane there. That's not a mistake, okay? So they've been constrained. They're going, oh, okay, I'll just get that in there. Right. So, but what we're doing is flagging it, helping by rating the risk of it. How risky is this? And then helping them a little bit with ideas on how we can lessen that risk. Okay. And there's many ways that you can lessen this. The obvious one is to make it not a trap lane. So actually channelize these right turns out, so this person goes straight through. However, they may absolutely be stuck and not able to do that. So what other things could we do? Could it be advanced warning? Could it be part of the signal phasing? Could we do advanced line marking alterations? Could we do some sort of separator facilities? There's lots of ideas and ways we could lessen this risk, but we're really there to assist them, ideally to get rid of it, but if that can't happen, some other ways. Okay. So a couple of examples there of things that meet standards or don't not meet standards, but are presenting risks. And our job is to try to highlight those in projects, be that at the design phase or when there are existing roads. Now, I'm going to play a little video here, and hopefully it streams for you. And this is of a crash. Now, road safety audits are not crash investigation, right? If there's a crash and you're investigating it in detail, you're doing a crash investigation, right? A road safety audit is that proactive look at an area. Okay, there might have been some crashes, but there may not have been some crashes. We're just looking for risk, right? The reason I'm playing you a crash here, and we're going to analyze this crash, is to start helping you see what parts of the road environment present risk and could cause crashes in the future. Just happens this one is happening. So this is more a learning tool rather than what a road safety audit is. But I'm going to play this, and then I want you to type in the chat things that you see in the road environment that could be contributing to this crash happening. So not the driver behavior particularly, what factors in the road environment, the design of the road and the like, could be contributing to this crash? So I'll play it a few times and then just type it in the chat what you think could be contributing to this crash. Okay, so we're looking at the back of a dash cam. We're going to go to the front in a sec. So looking for things in the road environment that could be contributing to this crash. I'm going to play it again for you just to give you another go, and just pop your ideas into the chat. Don't worry too much about it. Remember, you don't lose any points, any marks or anything. What in the road environment there could be contributing to this crash? Okay, seeing a few things come in. Let's see if a few others want to put ideas in there. Oh, this is good. You've got a good group here, Marissa. Got some good ideas coming in, looking at that road environment from that perspective of what's in that road environment that can contribute. So I'm just going to have a look through some of these as we go and make some comments on your comments. So we've got a few people started out having a look at, okay, what is the behavior going on here at the drivers? And we're going to try to put that to the side at the moment, although there is a big link between infrastructure and behavior. You know, you can elicit different behaviors off the infrastructure design. So then some people saying, okay, the lighting, you know, it kind of looks like dusk. It's always very hard to do this from dash cam footage or street view. And that's why, as part of a road safety audit, we always go to the site and we have a look at it with our actual eyes and get out there and walk around and drive around and the like. But that's something that could be looked at. So we've got some people who have noticed some obscuring of signs, sign blocking other signs. So that's good. Let's give Stuart a prize for thinking about the lighting, and we're going to give Kevin one for the noticing these obscured signs obscuring other signs. Nicholas was in there on the lighting as well, so we'll give another prize there because I'm feeling generous. Let's keep having a look down. I'm not going to get to everybody's comments, but I'm going to pick a few out here. Okay, Wayne's got an interesting comment there around sight distance. So having a look at, you know, are we achieving sight distance? Could this driver see what was coming, or are these shrubs and things blocking sight distance? So that's another factor that could be in there. So prize for Wayne there. Okay. Now, Thai has put a really interesting one in there. Local road on the opposite side of the intersection. I'm really intrigued by that. I'm going to come back to that, but definitely prize there. And then we've got a little bit of confusion about what the intersection form is. We've got some people who look thinking it might be a roundabout. Some people think it might be something else. That's an interesting one. If we're not sure about intersection form, I dare say some drivers are probably not aware of intersection form as they approach it. So Wendy's put in a really good comment there around the width of the intersection and the things that might be encouraging higher speed on the approach to this intersection. So prize there for Wendy, because I think that's an interesting one. These straight approaches always cause some challenges. We have a few ideas on different treatments that could be in there. Wow, this is a good group. And yeah, people wanting traffic signals and the like, stopping sight distance. A few people have put in there. Okay, that's great. So Marissa's giving me that look of, Ken, I've only got so many prizes here.
Run out soon. We're only on
No,
module one.
I'm giving away prizes. I love people contributing, putting their ideas out there, their thoughts out there. And I'm going to sort of grab onto a few of those. But really interesting one that came in there from, I think it was Thai. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This sort of road on the other side. And what we talk about is a see-through effect. The overarching suite of issue, we'll call it, is what we call visual deceit. So this is where the road environment may deceive a driver. And what we're worried about here in visual deceit is that a driver may approach this and think that their road just continues on. Okay, it might be, situations where it's foggy, or maybe they're half asleep, or they're, stuck behind a truck, or whatever it is. There is a chance that subtle clues in the road environment are telling them that the road continues on unabated. Now, there are a few factors we know that really start to increase your chance that a vehicle overshoots an intersection due to visual deceit, see-through effect. And those are things like continuous runs of power poles, continuous runs of trees, continuous runs of lighting, anything like that with that continuous sort of tunnel avenue effect really has this unconscious effect on a driver that they may be more likely to miss a give way or some important point we're trying to tell them to stop. Now, this one sort of has some of those characteristics. And certainly that straight alignment, as was talked about, would influence that. Yeah. Now, you'll notice there I talked about overshoot crashes. So when you think about intersection crashes, we've got two types of intersection crashes. There's overshoot crashes, which is where a driver does not recognize in time their need to stop or give way. Okay, so they haven't recognized that at all, or they haven't recognized it in time to stop. The other is what we call a restart crash. Restart crashes are where a driver is absolutely aware that there's an intersection coming up and they have to give way or stop. They've made an active decision either to sort of have a run at that, or they've been waiting a long time and they make a bad decision, or whatever it is, right? It's a restart. So you kind of think about those and solutions to those in very different ways. I would say for this one, I'm a bit more concerned. Well, certainly this crash looks like an overshoot crash. That driver has not recognized in time their obligation. I may be wrong, but it's got characteristics of overshoot in it. And certainly that alignment and everything really enhances that. Now, what I want to say is that geometric road design trumps signs and lines every time. So people have pointed out some things there around the signs, sign clutter blocking, line marking, and everything like that. They're important things for us to look at as road safety auditors, and we will look at those, right? But the straight alignment of this, the wide intersection, the continuation of the power poles, and that road running on the opposite side is going to be very influential to a driver's subconscious opinion of what's coming up. We use signs and lines in the road environment essentially to counter geometric stuff the most of the time, or to complement it, right? So our job as auditors is to try to, put ourselves in the driver's seat or in the rider's seat or in the shoes of the walker in their different states, and try to imagine them being a little confused or a little tired or these sorts of things. So lots of stuff you'd look at for the chance of a crash. But then there's this interesting sort of thing that happens, isn't there? And I should have said, I'm going to give you a break in about 15 minutes time, and you'll be able to fill your coffee up. But this is interesting. The crash happens, and then these cars then hit this light and it breaks away. So what's going on there? Is that like a hasn't been engineered strong enough, that light pole? Why is it breaking away like that? What's going on there? Any ideas? Pop it into the chat, and I'll check with Marissa if there's any things that I need to deal with, questions or the like at this stage. But it looks like Nick's getting a prize, frangible light posts.
Yes, some great answers from all of the participants. So thank you so much. We do have one question that's come in. Is the test barrier system in the lab made of a specific material?
Yeah. So the test itself for barrier systems is just a test. And you can create barrier systems out of whatever material you want. If it passes that test and contains it, then that barrier with that material in that configuration is given the tick of approval, and that's what would have to go out on the road. And we see it as there's concrete barriers, there's steel barriers, there's plastic barriers. So there's, and ones with wire rope systems or one with other systems. It's a frangible light post. Well done to those who are saying that. So it is designed to break away. Now, Tom's put in a really interesting question. What is going on with the top? And to be honest, I don't know myself. I've not seen a frangible light post with the top that comes off like that. Mostly the whole thing stays together as it is. So that's a weird one. I'm interested in that. But really what we've seen there is somebody has made a decision to engineer that light post to actually break away when struck by a vehicle, as opposed to being a rigid, strong, concrete pole. Now, I think that decision, whoever made that in this project, whenever it was done, has saved a serious injury, if not a fatality. Because if you know anything about kinetic energy, if you can dissipate your energy over a little bit of time, you get some magnitudes of order of reductions in severity. And you can see that this pole here, if that had been absolutely solid, that black vehicle would have slammed into that and dissipated all their energy into the human inside it very quickly. But it actually breaks away, and they get sort of all of that distance to cushion the energy transfer. So it really reduces the severity. Now, those who aren't aware of frangible poles, I mean, they are an absolutely fantastic invention. Okay, so how they work is essentially that a vehicle strikes it at the base, it shears, it has a shearing plane. Okay, it's bolted and it's got a collar on it to withstand all that wind load, that torque. I mean, it's going to have huge torque, right? But when struck at the base, it shears away. So now we're thinking about the severity of the incident, not just talking about, well, how can we stop this crash happening? We've got that see-through effect, and we've got sight distance, and we've got sign clutter, and we've got this, like we're trying to stop the crash happening. But we also, as auditors, need to get ourselves in this mindset of the crash is going to happen. We're going to try and eliminate it, but crashes are still going to happen. How do we make it so that the driver of those vehicles can walk away? And they do in that incident. So that's a win. So frangible is the term, which means breakaway on impact. I use that term a lot, and as auditors, you'll be using that term a lot. Frangible, is it frangible, right? The community and the public don't understand that term, but we use it a lot. And you can see here, Max, one of our senior road safety auditors who may mark your assignments, he's looking at the height of the shearing plane of these light poles. Because if you have them too high, well, the vehicles are going to snag on them. It's not frangible. If they're too low, it's not as bad, but they snag a little bit on the dirt and the like, and you don't get as much shearing, nice shearing off them. So we sometimes check the height of newly installed ones or maybe existing ones. And I'll be with you in a second, Marissa. The thing is, as a road safety auditor, you might be given a design set, a set of plans that includes lighting. And what we're trying to do is have a look at, okay, what are they going to be installing, and what can we suggest to make it safer? And so if I'm given a design set like this, I sort of read into the details. What are they doing? Okay, they're putting new lights. Okay, there's this light, and I might say, well, I wonder if that's going to cause a see-through effect. Like at night, are people going to think, that the road continues, or it may be they think the road curves and it doesn't curve or something like that. But then I'm also looking into the details and saying, okay, what do we actually, okay, that's a slip-based pole. That's good. Okay, they're thinking about that. You know, are we managing the energy here? Are we trying to provide these environments and think about people making mistakes? Now, what if they decided, okay, I'm worried about vehicles leaving the road, hitting this pole here. Let's make this a slip-based pole. Does anybody have any thoughts on making that a slip-based, a frangible pole? Pop that into the chat while I talk to Marissa about what's come up.
Lots of chat about the frangible poles, but there's a question from Nicholas. Can local councils in Victoria spec this? He thinks in New South Wales, only Transport for New South Wales could implement these.
No, certainly. It absolutely in Victoria, yeah, local governments can put in slip-based poles. Yep, absolutely, and encouraged in certain environments. And now this is where we get into some interesting stuff. Okay, so Kevin is worried about it falling over to the tram, the light rail cables, knocking down cables, as that is in terms of power lines. And Stuart's also concerned about it going all the way over into the Ford building and the like. And this is good because people are now starting to think about, well, when a vehicle strikes it, that's good for the occupant of the vehicle. But where's it going to fall? And so as auditors, we're thinking, you know, there and helping the designers and those make decisions around that. And we certainly don't want to have situations where we have slip-based poles in areas where there are power lines or pedestrians, lots of pedestrians or the like. And the reason for that is that sometimes these get clipped by trucks turning, or vehicles sort of hit them in a minor way and they go and they fall. And if that was to fall on an area where pedestrians were storing or take out power lines and the like, we could have some other serious issues. So the sort of rule of thumb you've got there is that high-speed environments, slip-based poles. Low-speed environments, you can usually get away with a rigid pole because the vehicles are going slow enough that when they hit those poles, they don't get seriously injured, the occupants of those vehicles, right? In those middle areas of speed become a little bit tricky. There is another pole that we can use. It's called an impact absorbing pole. That is a frangible pole, but it doesn't shear away. It just sort of crushes and contains within a general envelope of a vehicle. So it is an option in some of those middle ranges where you're really stuck a little bit. But generally, rule of thumb, high speed, slip-based, low speed, rigid, medium speed. You know, if there's no pedestrians around, you'd use a slip-based or no power lines or anything. If it is, you might consider one of these impact absorbing poles. As you can see, they're sort of crushes on impact. And so there I've put a little summary slide, and you'll also notice when you download the PDFs of the slides, if you want to do that, we also put some of these little buttons for you to click. If you're interested in this, you want a little more information on it, you want to see some videos of these working, you want to understand a little bit more, you can click on those and go to little safe system snippets on the topic. And it's certainly, if you follow Safe System Solutions on LinkedIn, you'll see our snippets. We put a few up every week of different things like slip-based poles, and we show some videos and how they work, and we tips for what you should think about. Okay, so road safety audit is proactive. I mentioned that at the start. We're trying to prevent crashes before they happen in an area. If we've got an area, it's got a lot of crashes, and we're looking, okay, what are the patterns of crashes here? Why, what are the road characteristics that are contributing to all these crashes? What we're actually doing there is what we call a black spot investigation or a crash reduction study or these sorts of terms. Now, there is a lot of overlap between the two. Don't get me wrong. Like, we're thinking the same way. It's just one of them is being driven by crashes that have happened, and the other is being driven by our understanding of risk. And crashes may or may not have occurred in this area, but the road safety audit process can happen on things that are not yet built. You can't really do a crash study on an intersection that doesn't exist in that form because it doesn't make sense, does it? If somebody's planning to build a roundabout, doing a crash study on that existing give-way intersection doesn't make sense, does it? Because what we're thinking about is now they're going to build a roundabout. What crashes could happen when they build this roundabout? What are the risks when they build the roundabout? So road safety audits at their core, and when they started, were about predicting the crashes of things that hadn't yet been built. So they're going to build a new road. What are the risks when they build that? What can we do? What can we add to that? What can we change about it to lessen the risk before it's built? Right? Now, road safety audits are also used in existing roads, and that's where we do get a bit of that overlap because crashes might have happened, and you might get some insights from those crashes. But what I want to say to you, I mean, the question posed down the bottom here is, should we look at crash history as part of a road safety audit? And for me, the answer is, that's up to you. But what I want to be clear is, it is not driving the road safety audit. It could be supplementary information to help you understand a little bit about the site, who's using it, what issues are happening, and the like. But if you are really driving your analysis based on crashes, you're doing a black spot investigation, which is, yeah, it's still a super valuable thing to do, but just be aware of that slight nuance. Now, road safety audits are super, super beneficial. So a couple of studies have found, well, there's some US studies, there's some Australian studies, a Canadian study, but 36-1 in a benefit cost ratio for doing a road safety audit at a design stage. So that's, before they build it, the road safety audit team has a look at the plans, they have a look at the site that they're planning to build it on, they make recommendations and some alterations are made. 36-1. Every dollar invested returns $36. That is astronomical. Like astronomical. Yeah. For an existing road, if you go out to an existing road and you look at, oh, these things look risky, and then make changes, you get 6-1. Still an absolutely huge benefit cost ratio. You invest in that every day of the week. But a question for you for a prize, as we're getting close to our stretch break, why do we get so much more value at the design stage than the existing stage? Still, the existing stage is astronomical, but why so much more at the design stage going through this road safety audit process? Any thoughts on that? Okay. Good group. Now, Marissa, they almost all came in at once there. So let's find somebody who has yet to get a prize for today. And because they've all said essentially the same thing. It's easier to change a project when it's lines on a bit of paper or lines in CAD. You can change things quite easily. People are open to those change. The construction costs are lower, all of these sorts of things. Once you've got actual roads and concrete poured and everything there, it's kind of expensive and people are reluctant to make those changes. So all of those ones that came in there are on the right thinking. So moral of that is, if we can get in there at design stages, we can have such wonderful benefits in terms of injecting safety into projects. All right, let me cover this, and then I'm going to give you that stretch break, probably as we do a little poll quiz, which, again, I remind you, you're not being marked on anything in the live course. But what is a road safety audit? Well, I could get you to just read page 6 of the Austroads Guide. Oh, sorry, page 4 of the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which sort of details out why, what a road safety audit is and the like. but I'm going to grab a little bit of that, which says a road safety audit is a formal examination of a future road or traffic project or an existing road or road-related area in which an independent qualified team reports on a project's crash potential and actual safety performance, respectively. Some really important words in there. It's a formal examination. This is, we do this. It's a formal exercise. There's a particular way we report it up. It isn't just like a casual check of a design. It's a formal process. Future road or existing road done by independent people. Okay, you can't be the designer. You can't be the project manager, right? The reason for that is you've got to have this, we don't want you conflicted by other challenges with the project. Sometimes you're just too close to it. You can't see issues because you're so close to it. You did the design. Qualified team, so people who have done this course and are on registers, and we're looking for crash potential. What are going to cause crashes in the future? So the safe system is the philosophy under which a lot of governments are attacking road safety. And it is a philosophy. And I'm going to quickly go through it, and then we're going to do a little poll while you fill up your coffee and the like. But right at the center of the safe system, and I'm going to use this diagram. I could use, there's a number of diagrams out there you could use, but it's a human. I mean, we are trying to create a road transport system for humans, and humans are able to survive in our road and street system. But part of the fact of humans is that they make mistakes, okay? We need to start acknowledging human mistakes as part of our designs, okay? We're not going to encourage mistake making or error or inappropriate road use, but what we need to do is start to say, okay, we're designing here for humans. Humans are not perfect, so how do we create our designs to accommodate some of that? Not encourage it, and we're going to try and do everything we can to lessen it and minimize it, but how do we design for that? And one of the things we need to do is start thinking about, well, how much force can the human body handle before it breaks? And that becomes a bit of a design parameter for us. So understanding forces, kinetic energy becomes a really important aspect of road safety auditing or road design these days. And we're going to dig into that in a bit of detail shortly. Shared responsibility is misunderstood in the safe system. People think that means, oh, well, people have to be perfect as well. No, that is not the intention of shared responsibility. Shared responsibility is actually the other way around. It's to say to us who are involved in the design, management, operation of the system that we have to take responsibility regardless of what's happened in terms of error by the human. Okay, we cannot just push our responsibility to the individual to act perfectly all the time. Now, the thing is that we've got different levers that can be pulled to improve safety. We've got the vehicles and we've got the road users themselves and the way they make decisions and operate. The big ones in road safety auditing, though, are the speed of travel and the roads and the roadsides. And that's where we're going to be trying to inject things in there. So we're aiming at no death or serious injury. Like, that's our aspiration. We need to get our head in that it is unacceptable for anybody to be killed or seriously injured. It's not going to happen, It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen in 10 years' time. But we need to be working our way and having that mindset of it's unacceptable for death and serious injury to occur and make decisions according to that. People make mistakes and we've got a shared responsibility, but the shared responsibility, the ultimate responsibility was with us, and that people are vulnerable. And I've got to the point I wanted to get to before I let you get a stretch. So you're going to have 4 minutes now. And what's going to happen is I'm going to have a look at any questions. A poll is going to pop up on your screen. You're not being marked on it, but it's a chance for you to consolidate some of your thinking. And there's one question at the end, which we haven't covered, but you're going to have a guess at. I'm going to have a look at these, and you've got 4 minutes to have a stretch and to answer any of those questions on the polls, and then we'll get back into it. While we get back into it, Dave has popped in a few questions. And g'day, Dave. So Design Seeds BCR. So there's a number of studies, as I mentioned out there. There's one from Federal Highways over in the US. There's one European one. And the 36 comes out of reference to an Australian one that was done. And it was including the cost of infrastructure, but it was predicted. So they hadn't gone back and analyzed. So if those changes were made and predictions on the cost of any changes as well, so not just the cost of the audit itself, but also any changes, then what could be achieved. And the source of the safe system diagram I was using was the Victorian government. That is a Victorian safe system diagram. It's not in the current Victorian road safety strategy, but it was in a past one, as you might remember, Dave, actually. Shared responsibility is perhaps the least understood aspect of the safe system. I couldn't agree more, Dave. I think we really, to the point, I want it almost eliminated out of safe system discussion because of its misunderstanding. Okay, let's have a look at this poll. We do have a hand raised, so we'll let Marissa, it might be an accidental hand raise, but I'll let Marissa work on that. Let's have a look here. Okay, road safety order is another name for check against standards. So false, almost everyone got that. That's right. No, it's not. You can audit your own design. No, you can't. You've got to be independent. I covered that off at the end. So those formal elements of the safe system, safe attitude, we'd love everyone to have a safe attitude. It's probably within the safe people element. And principles of the safe system. Yeah, the idea of eliminating mistakes on the road, we're realistic. We understand that humans make mistakes. Okay, we're going to try to minimize mistakes. And what do we talk about is minimize and manage. Elimination, and that aim is not part of the safe system, minimizing and managing. And what speed did Usain Bolt cross the finish line? Well, it's very appropriate during Olympics times. We're talking about that. Usain Bolt crossed the finish line, and many of you are onto this, at 44 kilometers an hour. Now, why on earth am I asking that in a road safety audit course? Is it just Olympics fun? No. What I want you to do is imagine that we park a Toyota Hilux at the end of Usain Bolt's lane, or the end of each lane for all those runners in the 100-meter final, and they slam into those. Will they survive? Will they survive? And the answer is probably yes, because they're very strong, fit, healthy. They'll probably hurt themselves in the short term, but recover to lead a normal, healthy life. In fact, that's kind of how humans evolved. We evolved to have a stature that we can run into things, solid things, off the speed of our own legs. And that gives you a little bit of an indication of the vulnerability of the human body. We do have a bit more science and data and evidence around this. There's lots of science and data and research going on around the world all the time on this sort of stuff, but I'm going to use these sort of simplistic diagrams of it. And what we see here is a passenger vehicle striking a pedestrian. And this is the speed of collision. Okay, we're not talking about speed limit. I'm just talking about the speed of impact. And this is a chance that it results in death for a member of our community. And so you can see there around that sort of 10, 20, 30 kilometer per hour mark, it's pretty survivable for most members of our community. Okay, there'll be some very frail old people that won't survive a 20 or 30 kilometer hit, but the bulk of our population would survive that. The great man comes in there up high. I mean, he's built to withstand some more force than us mere mortals. Up around those sort of 60s and 70s, it gets quite unsurvivable for anybody in our community. There'll be rare freak events where people survive it, but it just gives you a general sort of correlation of what you can withstand, or what we can withstand as humans. Bit more Olympics action going on here, and you can see this is kind of what the human body is built to survive. And, you know, we can laugh at that because he's okay. He broke a few ribs, came back, won the gold medal the next year. But yeah, think about that as the kind of forces that we need to keep things within. We don't want that to happen, but if it's going to happen, keep it within that rather than these higher speeds. But of course, there's lots of different crashes that can happen out there. We've got side impact, and this is what we call it, like a side impact, sometimes called a T-bone crash. And this is the bullet vehicle. So in a crash, we talk about a bullet vehicle and a target vehicle. So the bullet vehicle speed is down here. The target vehicle, well, they might have just pulled out from an intersection or the like. They're the ones that are going to be likely killed or seriously injured. And you can see they're at 30, 40, even 50 kilometers an hour. They're generally survivable for the occupant of the target vehicle, but bullet vehicle speed coming in here now. As you're up at that sort of 80, 90, it's likely going to result in death to the occupant of the target vehicle. And for head-on crashes, well, they're both target and they're both bullet vehicles at once. But as they come in, we see around that sort of 50, 60, 70 kilometer per hour survivable. Up around that 100, 110, it's unsurvivable. Now, that's the speed of each vehicle. So, you know, your closing speed could be higher, as in your closing speed at 70 is 140. But the forces, actually, we think about the individual occupants of the vehicle, what's happening to them, and they're basically going from 70 to 0, assuming, you know, same weight, same mass hitting front on, which doesn't actually happen in many crashes, but that's the sort of theory behind it. Now, again, there's a bit more information, lots of information out there around this sort of stuff. But they start giving you a general sort of feel for where things start to go really bad after certain speeds. And we generally talk about that 30 for pedestrians, 50 for side impact, 70 for head-on crashes, where we know things sort of exponentially kick up after that. So we talk about that as a bit of a safe system threshold line. We want to keep speeds under that where these crashes can happen. And if you want speeds higher than that, you've got to start to redesign the road environment so these crashes can't happen in these configurations. There's lots more crash types out there. I've put this table in, which covers off a few more crashes, things like side impact with poles, which is, you know, actually quite low threshold, 30 or 40 kilometers an hour before we start to really see death of vehicle occupants kicking up considerably. And I'll refer back to some of those threshold speeds as we go. But the old model of road safety auditing basically said, all right, look at the plan or look at the existing road, find things you're concerned about, give them a risk rating, and then recommend some treatments. Okay, and that's a good model. The newer, more contemporary way of doing road safety audits, which is what we're going to be doing, still look for those issues, things you're concerned with, still assess the risk, but relate it back to those safe system tolerance levels that I talked about just then. So we're thinking about, okay, so we're concerned about this. We're going to try to minimize the chance that this issue actually happens. But when it does, how bad is it going to be? And then we still make recommendations, but we actually sort of give an indication to the receiver of this report. Is that going to be something that is going to almost eliminate death and serious injury? Or is that something that just helps out a bit? Now, the only jurisdiction that doesn't make recommendations is New South Wales. So if you're in New South Wales, just be aware you're probably going to, stop at that point. But everyone else makes recommendations. Okay. I think you're starting to sort of put a few puzzle pieces in what is this road safety audit thing together. I'm going to run you through an example now of identification of issue all the way through to making recommendations. And we use this as an example, okay? So here we've got a plan, a design for a new intersection. Does not exist at the moment. New intersection coming. Here it is. It's got a left turn lane. It's got a right turn lane. It's got a splitter island. Okay, we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, when they build this, what things are we concerned about? And I'm going to go with one particular concern, which is a vehicle turning left. If I go back in the left turn lane here, blocking the sight lines of a vehicle that's here. And so you can see here that we've got a vehicle coming along here, and you can see the white vehicle has appeared there. So the car here might decide straight after that white vehicle, I'm going to do my right-hand turn. But the whole time, another vehicle had been masked behind that truck. So if that vehicle had gone out, there would have been a high-speed right-angle impact. So the presence of the left turn lane in that configuration actually exacerbates this risk because it leaves the ability for that vehicle traveling straight through to be masked and to maintain high speed. So let's have a look at that. How do we describe this to the receiver of this report? And in my sort of 20 plus years of road safety auditing and teaching road safety auditing, I finally worked out there's actually a bit of a formula to what makes for a good road safety audit finding. And I'm going to teach you this formula to follow. The formula goes as such. First of all, you want to tell them what this issue is, describe the issue, but you don't stop there, right? You then go and you say, what's the actual crash that could happen? So describe to me the crash that could happen if this issue occurs. Then you talk about, well, what are some of the factors that are influencing the risk of this happening or how bad it will be when it does happen? And then if there's any standards or guidelines that are applicable, you can add it in there. You could say it meets standards, it doesn't meet standards, or you may not know, okay? And in which case you don't even need to say anything there. That's an optional one, the purple one. But the red there is saying, okay, for the intersection here, vehicles turning left, vehicles turning left in the left turn lane may create dynamic visual obstruction for motorists at the hold line looking for through vehicles. The dynamic visual obstruction is a fancy way of saying masking or blocking sight lines, but by a moving thing. This increases the likelihood of right through side impact crashes involving the vehicle turning out of the road. So that's the crash. We've described it. The volume of vehicles on both roads is low, which reduces the likelihood of crash. However, the proportion of larger vehicles turning left into Epsom Barnawartha Road is high, which increases the chance of dynamic visual obstruction. So you can see this saying, oh, well, there's not too many cars out here, so that's kind of a low chance that it'll happen, or no too many vehicles. But there's actually a lot of big vehicles turning left and they block more sight lines. So that's increasing it a bit. So you're getting a bit of painting that picture. The design is consistent with current Austroads and VicRoads design guidance. The auditors believe it still presents a safety issue. So it's a little bit of an old audit finding here, but this is the audit team saying, hey, we know you've just designed this to standard, but we still think it's an issue. So have a think about it. So that one's sort of almost thinking about how they're going to receive this report and that they still should do something about it. So then we need to actually say, well, what is the risk here? What is the actual risk we're going to attribute to this? Now, risk is the combination of the chance a crash happens and then the severity of it if it does happen. Could be termed likelihood, severity, or frequency, consequence, but that is the international sort of definition of risk, and not just road safety risk, financial risk, environmental risk, health risk. It's all about, what is the chance bad thing happens, and then what's the magnitude of badness, and you multiply those. And for us in road safety auditing, we use a sort of classic risk matrix, which you might have used for, doing a risk assessment of occupational health and safety or any other thing, where we're saying, okay, we've identified some issue. What's the chance it's going to happen and how bad is it going to be? And this is out of the Austroads Guide, part 6. And you can see there that there's a little bit of extra information. Are crashes going to happen once every quarter as a result of this left turn lane, or is it going to be sort of once every 7 years or so that it's going to happen? And when that does happen, I mean, is it just going to be minor property damage, or are we going to talk about people being killed in this incident? And then you find your corresponding risk rating. Okay, now you'll see here, there's this safe system threshold line. So this is a bit of a new addition to basically say, we're really, really concerned about these ones. Okay, ones that sit down here we don't like, and we'll try and do things about them, but these ones we're really concerned about. And the only reason for this line is that you can get a high risk there and you can get a high risk there. And all things being equal, we're more concerned about that high risk than we are about that high risk. That's really the only reason and the need for it. And what we do is we annotate it with this FSI. FSI. Somebody for a prize in the chat, what does FSI stand for? So we're saying that's high risk, FSI. Medium risk, FSI. Give out a prize for that. And you can see there that the ones sitting to the left of the line here, they don't. So high risk with no annotation. And Nick gets a prize. So fatal, serious injury, or fatal or severe injury. So these ones are just saying, yeah, that's up in that's going to potentially kill or seriously injure someone. That medium is, potentially going to do that. That one means that, no, well, they're going to possibly crash, and then there'll be some minor first aid required. So what we do then is we say, right, we've described the issue and all of these factors around it. And now we need to say, okay, how likely is that to happen? And we've said rare for this. So we're thinking it's actually not actually going to be a crash. Really important thing around likelihood here is it's thinking about the crash happening at that severity. So I have no doubt that when this is built, there'll be dynamic visual obstruction occurring, maybe every few months. But which ones actually result in a crash, and of those crashes actually result in that level of severity of crash? The severity, we're thinking about speeds, speed of vehicle, angles, vulnerable road users, if they're involved. This one's just car to car, this particular issue. And that results us in medium risk. But medium risk FSI. So once we've done that, we've fleshed out there, okay, that's the issue. We've risk rated it, flagged all of that. I love a little diagram like this. And as a receiver of a lot of road safety audit reports, I can tell you, please make it as easy as possible for the receiver of that report to see what you're talking about. Snip the design, put a photo in, annotate it, whatever you can. There's nothing worse as the receiver of a road safety audit report to spend half an hour trying to work out what on earth they're talking about or where they're talking about. You've got 10 kilometers of road, and they say the barrier system is too close to the batter hinge point. You're like, which bit? Where? So if you be really clear, all right? And as a road safety auditor, I'm always looking to put a diagram, a snip of the design, something in there to help them. But we're now going to actually say, okay, well, what can you do about that? How can we lessen that risk? Now, there's many, many ways we could lessen that risk with that left turn lane. So what we need to do is sort of think about, okay, I've got all of these ideas. Which ones do we recommend? There's a bit of just general knowledge in that, judgment. But there's also ability for us to put a few ideas down, but help them by saying some of these are going to be really beneficial. And that's what we call primary treatments. They virtually eliminate the chance of death and serious injury happening. They don't necessarily virtually eliminate the crash or the issue, but they virtually eliminate the chance of it resulting in death or serious injury. Supporting treatments are still things that improve road safety, but they're not expected to virtually eliminate death and serious injury. So what I want you to do, this is probably one of the things that people will struggle the most to get their head around in this course. And my few little tips for you are, I'm going to put little sort of handles on this because I want you to think of these as buckets or bags of treatments, okay? So in them, you might have roundabouts and signals, and you might have line marking and lighting and all these different ideas, right? And they're going to be pulled out of one of these bags. Now, when you come up with your ideas to improve it, you've got to say, okay, have I pulled that out of the supporting bag or the primary bag? Now, you do not need to provide a primary treatment as a recommendation. It could all be supporting treatments. Or you might have 2 primary treatments for them to choose from. So just think about that. The purpose of this annotation of primary or supporting is so the receiver of that report knows where they're going to get the best alignment with safe system principles as possible, being the primary treatments. And we're trying to encourage people to go primary treatments where they can. So you can see for this one then, the recommendation has been put. Implement measures to reduce the speed and or angle of impact of this location. This could be achieved with a roundabout primary. If this cannot be achieved, implement measures to improve sight lines at this location, such as increasing the offset of the left turn lane, supporting, relocating the hold line forward, provided it can be done so safely, supporting. Now, some really important things to note there. So a roundabout is identified as the primary treatment for this crash type, okay? We've said what the crash type is, side impact crashes. A roundabout virtually eliminates death and serious injury at an intersection of side impact crashes. Okay, we've still got some worries for pedestrians and cyclists and motorcyclists and some other crash types, but for that crash type, it virtually eliminates death and serious injury. Doesn't mean that side impact crashes don't happen. They're just lower speed, better angle, but it virtually eliminates it. Increase the offset of the left turn lane is an interesting one, isn't it? So that would be to move this left lane down here. Maybe we've got to do a little bit of civil works, widen the road a little bit. Maybe we hatch that out somehow, okay? And so what we've done is opened up the sight lines. So your question might be, hang on, why is that only a supporting treatment? I mean, we've eliminated that issue. The sight line, the dynamic visual obstruction can't happen. There's no sight line impediment now because vehicles turning left have gone way out. They're down here. The reason is that this does not virtually eliminate that crash, does it? So this driver can still make a mistake, bad judgment, bad choice. Hey, they're way less likely to do it because they've got good sight lines. It's clear, they can see, but it can still happen. And it's going to happen at the same speed and the same angle. Don't get me wrong, it's a great treatment, but it's not getting us to that primary and pretty much elimination of side impact crashes at this location. And there was just a snip from one where I was reviewing an audit, and they'd put in this from some colleagues were doing it, and they'd actually said, well, you could put in a bike lane through there, which would open up those sight lines and provide a bit of bike facility because they had some concerns about bikes as well. It's not a primary, absolutely not a primary safe system treatment, but it's kind of a neat use of things. And they actually added this little sketch in, which is probably going above and beyond what a road safety auditor would usually do, but I thought it was quite interesting. So just to reinforce that, to be a primary treatment, it's either got to address the consequence down to levels that are within the tolerance of the human body, or it's got to virtually eliminate the possibility of that crash altogether, And that has to take into account general human error, just as Nicholas, and prize for Nicholas, I think, in there, is saying it. I mean, it doesn't eliminate human error. And in fact, we can't eliminate human error. It's part of being human, and humans are still in control of our transport system a lot of the time, certainly walking and riding and these sorts of things as well. So what we've got to do is get it within that, or do stuff that eliminates it. So like close intersections, do overpasses, these sorts of things where that conflict point now no longer exists. You'll get some practice at this primary supporting. In fact, we've got a whole quiz coming up in a few modules time, which is all focused on trying to get your head around this. It may be one you reach out for some one-on-one coaching if you're struggling to get your head around it. Now, the final thing we do is we put this responsible officer columns there. That is a reminder to whoever's received this audit report, hey, we've identified something here, we've risk rated it, we've made some recommendations. Over to you now, do something with that. Doesn't mean they have to do what we've suggested, but they've got to think about it. Okay, are they going to accept it? Are they going to accept that's an issue? Are they going to accept our ideas? They can write some comments. And that's for their records. Whoever's received it, could be the designer, could be the project manager. They've got to do something with this. And we always leave that blank as auditors to remind them to do something with this. So, I mean, here's another example. I won't go through this one in as much detail. This is, I mean, again, I just can't stress how much that is great. I mean, there's a snip of the design and a big arrow pointing at it. And I can immediately go, oh, okay, 2.9 meter wide right turn lane. That looks pretty narrow. That could cause some challenges, right? I know which right turn lane they're talking about, where it is, and then, you know, the words here we could go through in detail, which we won't. I'll keep moving, but that will sort of detail it, what is going to influence risk, what's the crash types that could happen. There you go, head on, side swipe, rear end, risk factors. And then this one actually talks about some specifics in road design, in what you should be trying to achieve, because there are actually, this doesn't meet standards. So it's one that's pointing out, hey, that doesn't meet standards. We're concerned about it. Here it is. Remember to go back to those threshold speeds of safe system. So it could be from this, could be from those graphs I showed, but we'll be thinking about that for the severity of the crash. So you can see this one would be within tolerable limits. So that gets medium without the FSI, because they're worried about rear end side swipes. They're more minor crash types. I mean, you can sideswipe crash and odds on you're going to be walking away from it, right? We don't want sideswipe crashes, but they are generally survivable. Rear ends are pretty good at medium speeds. They start to get pretty bad as your speed increases. And you can see here some ideas that this one can be as simple as saying, consider measures to reallocate road space to allow for 3.3 meter wide lanes. Now, it's then back to the designer, the project manager to make decisions on how they might do that. It's not for us as auditors to do this full redesign work and make all these changes for them. It's for them to consider. They've got lots of other things they're trying to balance and the like. We're just providing that recommendation. But you'll notice also on this one, it's only a supporting treatment. We have not eliminated side swipes or rear end crashes, but we've lessened the chance of it if we're able to give them the appropriate lane width. And there's a Wally. Sorry, I said I wouldn't help you anymore. I'm going to keep moving on, actually, because I want to give you another little case study before I hand back to Marissa to take you through the learning management system, show you your, actually, it's an assignment today. You've got a little assignment. Don't worry, it's not a long assignment. So just, I suppose, the poor example, right turn bay is too narrow. It's just not enough information, is there? This is better, where you're starting to say which turns, and the crash types and some off-road stuff. This one, as we looked at before, really goes into it in detail. And you can look in the PDF of the notes here, but talking about the issue, the crash, the risk factors, and the standards and guidelines, if applicable. Nice little diagram as well. Now, a little window into the people who mark your assignments in this course. They're looking for, have they described the issue? Have they articulated the crash? Have they put in any risk factors? And then, if they put standards and guidelines stuff as well, that's great, but that's not, going to make or break. Have they put a nice little snip or photo or something in there? Then that's getting very high marks as an audit finding if you've done all of those elements. Okay, so a few things just here that a road safety audit is not. And again, there's lots of words on here, so you can have a look at these. We talked about not being a check against standards. We generally don't use audits to make judgments on the overall merits of a road project. The audits are more into the details of it and looking for things. There are other ways to think about the overall merits of a project. And we don't really use it to justify one project or rank project options. Again, you're just looking at the issues and trying to identify them and lessen those risks. Doesn't replace any of the normal quality assurance processes that should happen. It's not a crash investigation. It's not that routine maintenance inspection either. They're not road safety audits. They're just condition assessments. We really don't want it only applied to these big, high cost projects. It should be applied in lots of projects. So we don't want things being brought up that are outside of the road safety sort of scope, or redesigning the project without this real link to safety. It's not a workplace health and safety check. So sometimes you're out there, you're not checking the workers and their specifics. It's about what is going to be built and what's the safety of the traveling public after construction. And then there's a bit on traffic management stuff, and I'll talk about that in a later module. I always like to talk about road safety auditors as problem finders. Like, that's our job. And I often teaching road safety auditing to engineers and road designers and technical people and others, that they immediately jump to a solution. And what I have to do a lot of the time is drag them back and say, no, wait. Tell me, what is the problem you're trying to address? You've come up with the solution, but what was the problem? And the reason I'm really wanting them to focus on that is that the solution may be dependent on some of the constraints that the project team has. Like, our job is to find that issue, provide them some ideas on how it could be lessened or eliminated, but it's up for them to really decide that in all of their complex context. And it's one of many tools we've got. And I've popped, quite a few in there. We've got design reviews. We've got safe system assessments. We've got safety and design. We've got DDA, which is Disability Discrimination Act. That's checking that, can be used by all road users, wheelchairs, vision impaired and the like. Lots of checks. Road safety audit is one of them. There's overlap between that and others. So lots going on in that space. Now, what can be audited? Well, anything that interacts with the road environment. That's the important point. So it could be cycleways, it could be big projects, small projects, urban, rural construction sites, roadworks, innovative projects. If it interacts with the road environment, you can do car parks, then it can be subject to the road safety audit process. And often it should be subject to the road safety audit process. It's assurance that we've done everything we can to create things as safe as possible. Here's an interesting case study example I'll run through, which is a unsealed road here. And this is a rural environment. And this is a council road, 100 kilometers an hour at the time. This is an arterial road here, also 100 kilometers per hour. The council are going to seal this road, formalize this road, and they're going to do some works at the intersection to formalize it, bit of curb and channel, make it all formalized. And it's going to look like this. In fact, that is it. There you go. It's been sealed. It's been formalized. Now, without knowing this and without getting down there on site and looking at it and everything like that, I'll tell you that after they did this, there was a considerable increase in death and serious injury, and it was associated with a particular crash type that had shot up. I'll give a prize to somebody who can tell me what the crash type was, but also why did it increase? Why did we see this increase in death and serious injury after these works had been completed? Why did this become a site of a lot of death and serious injury to our community just after they'd done these upgrades? So, yes, T-bone crashes is correct, but why? To get the prize, you need to tell me why. What has it changed? What's it influenced? Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. So, oh, wow. I'm going to give that, I mean, lots of them came in that I could give prizes to. But I'm going to give one to Mohammed and one to Brianna. A few others came in just a little bit before. They're on the same track as well. Could have got prizes. I think they've already got prizes today, though. But yes, when approaching here now, it looks like the road continues on, doesn't it? When we were approaching here before, it was kind of obvious that the road didn't, because it's very different, and people could see it in the distance. Now, that's the new bit of road. Don't worry about the burnout marks, but now we're on the old bit of road, and you can see it continues through, and we've got the power poles that continue on down there. We've got a run of trees. I mean, they couldn't have lined up the center lines any better, could they? I mean, it's a real visual deceit, and we see overshoot. We just saw a big increase in overshoot crashes. And at 100 kilometers an hour, vehicles shooting there, vehicles coming through, unsurvivable. Well, some of them survived, but they are holding lifelong debilitating injuries, right? The scary thing about this is it wasn't subject to road safety auditing, because the people responsible for the design and the project said, well, we're improving things. We're following all the standards. We're improving things, right? And this is really to reinforce that anytime we're making changes to the road environment, having somebody who looks at this through an absolute safety lens is really important. Yeah, it looks like we're going to improve the whole area, doesn't it? But there's a clear example of changes to the road environment resulting in death and serious injury to our community. And there's so many things that we could have done to alter this at that design stage. And there's big things, like we could have suggested roundabouts or the like. Huge costs associated with that. They may not be able to do it, but there's more minor things, isn't there? We could have put splitter islands in. We could have looked to offset the intersections, so staggered T. We could have done different arrangements. We could have done active advance warning signs, rumble strips on the approach. Many, many things could have been done. All right. If somebody had looked at this through that lens, and with the sort of simple knowledge that you've now got, because I've just seen so many of you identified that issue and I raised it, we can start to lessen that risk. Last few minutes for me before I hand over to Marissa to take you through some stuff. There's different types of road safety audits. So they all go through the same process, but we can do that before construction, during construction, or after construction. And so when there's designs, we can look at those and we can audit them. We'll call those feasibility design road safety audits, preliminary design road safety audits, detailed design road safety audits. During construction audits, or just before the ribbon's cut, we call that a pre-opening audit. Immediate post-opening, or existing conditions audits or thematic audits. Feasibility stage audits are what I call them the planning audit. Like they're usually big picture. You don't have a lot of design detail. You're thinking about the alignment of roads, big bypasses and these sorts of things. And, you're thinking about, I wonder how people from up here are going to get down here now. I wonder if people along here are going to be entering this off-ramp at speed. I wonder what how close are these interchanges? Somebody going to get on and then people are trying to get off? Are they close spaced together? Big picture stuff. Have they considered pedestrians trying to get across these areas? All of that sort of stuff. Big picture. Then you get into a bit more detail and what we call a preliminary or concept design audit. You might have that on an aerial image or a survey base, and you'll get a bit more detail, like you can see there, and you're trying to think about, okay, when they build that roundabout, what are the issues? How are pedestrians going to cross there? What are the grades? Do we know that yet? Then you get into detailed design, and this is where you get the full works. And, like hundreds of A3 pages sometimes to be pouring through. And that's where you get the long sections, cross sections, all your geometric plans. You'll get your drainage, your pavement, signs and lines, signal phasing. You really get a lot of technical detail. And this is where I sort of flag now, and I'll flag it again later, that if you're not somebody who sort of looks at that and knows what's going on, okay, you can be part of a detailed design audit team, but you really need to partner yourself up with people who look at this and really understand these details, and they're able to identify those sort of things. You may be the person who's asking those logical questions of, okay, well, how do people get from here to here? That looks a bit confusing. Could somebody be confused by that? So you could be contributing those. Or if you are that person who understands the detail, you're able to identify some other risk factors. But we audit in teams, so we're able to pull these skills together. I use this as a bit of an example of some of the, real nuanced detail that in a detailed design, which is that we've got different drivable culvert end walls. So drivable culvert end wall, drivable culvert end wall. This is not good. We don't want vehicles leaving the road having an abrupt stop on that. So these are good, but these are two different types of drivable culvert end wall. And you've got to know which one goes in which location. We've got ones for parallel to the road, and one's got perpendicular to the road. And getting the two the wrong way around still leaves a bit of risk there. But I just use that to show you there's some pretty nuanced detail when you're in the detailed design road safety audit phase. Construction sites is looking about, okay, they're going to change the road environment. It might be for a temporary time period, but how is that going to play out? And I sort of say, and not just like, is it meeting the code and the standards, but like, are we diverting vehicles down roads with schools? If there's a KFC on this corner, well, how are people going to get their chicken? I mean, if they're on this side of the road, they're going to get their chicken and they'll make their way across there that way. Or have we provided good access across there, safe ways for them to get across? Like thinking more broadly than just, is that the right sign and is the taper of the bollards, the correct length? Yeah, we're going to check that as well, but we step back, we look holistically. What are the issues here? What is the danger? Pre-opening, just before the ribbon's cut. So often it's checking, have the signs and lines gone incorrectly, the barriers gone incorrectly, have they put the right colored RRPMs in the right places, and the guideposts the right way around, like that sort of stuff. You would hope that major geometric issues have been weeded out by now, because if they built it, it's going to be a real struggle for them to make major changes at this stage. You would still report it if you noticed it, but it'll be very challenging at that stage. Quick prize as I near the end here in the post-opening. So this is often when it's almost live to traffic and you're having a check that just completed it. You go out there as the audit team. Can anybody see the issue there? And again, a little bit like the pre-opening one, it's a lot of time you're checking signs and lines and the like. Brianna has said no left turn. Kevin is on it, and Wendy quickly after as well. But Kevin, I think, is one. So yes, no left turn. That's not really a safety issue as much as it is that somebody could turn right from this lane and straight. We've got a forced conflict. This is just somebody's put the stencil down the wrong way. The line marker has got their stencil upside down and marked it. These things happen. We are one of the layers of checks that could be used. I would hope the surveillance officer would have picked that up. I would have hoped the supervisor of the line marker would have picked it up, but somebody hasn't picked it up, and we could be one of the layers in there. Existing conditions audits. Yes, we go out there, we look at the existing road environment, we make comments on any issues. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And thematic audits is where you take a particular road user and you really hone in on them. Every audit should consider every road user. However, if you were doing a motorcycle audit, for example, you would only be focused on the issues for motorcyclists. These are used occasionally for different purposes. Or a cycling audit, you'd only be focusing on issues for cyclists, and walking audit only for pedestrians. But most audits consider all road users. All audits should consider all road users, but these thematic ones, which are only focused on that particular road user. And you get out there and you ride it, or you engage a rider to ride it, or you ride it yourself, or you walk it. You usually walk most audit locations anyway. Okay, Marissa's about to take you through the learning management system, but we're going to give you a little assignment. What your assignment is here is that we are going to give you a topic. We're going to be selected at random. Marissa will do that shortly. And what we want you to do is do a little bit of research on this. And by research, I mean a bit of Googling, a bit of reading, a little bit of looking at stuff. And then we want you to create a little video or a fact sheet or a cartoon or a little voice recording, podcast style thing, or whatever you want that talks about this specific topic and sort of relates it back to the road safety specifics. The reason we do this is there's so many topics out there. We can't cover them all. We want you to dig into a little topic, and we're going to give some prizes out to the people who present it back in the most creative way. We're going to give the most technically sound one and the most engaging one a prize, okay? So the topics, and Marissa will pop these up shortly, lots of different things out there. We could list, hundreds, thousands of things we could look at, but, some different things to have a look at. You will be given one of these, and then we are putting it over to you to create something. It could be as easy as a little fact sheet, PowerPoint, or a cartoon or something, but relate it back to road safety, how we might think about it, and some insights. So over to you, Marissa. You can steal the screen now, and anybody pop your questions into the chat as we go.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, really looking forward to it. Okay, so here are your list of topics. So I'm going to do a bit of a random selection, and I'll stop in 3, 2, 1. All right. So no, don't stress. I will send you these in an email. And we will pop this on the LMS, but here are your topics that you've been assigned. I will email this out to you, so don't worry if you forget what this is. So hopefully you can see your name on the screen there. All right, let's have a look at the LMS quickly. I can see a lot of you, nearly all of you already jumped in, so thank you so much. Here is the content. We've got some pre-course content, which you may have already browsed. And we've got a bunch of resources here in the reference and documents folder that you, are free to browse it in your own time. Okay, over in Module 1, we've got the Module 1 presentation here from today. So we've got the slides there that you are able to refer to at any time, and some Module 1 videos that Ken has played and perhaps some that he hasn't as yet. So feel free to have a look at them. And a Mythbusters episode. Oh, there's a bit of a tricky one that I can't get out. Okay, so your task for today, we've got a bit of a quiz. We've got a Module 1 quiz for you. It's only 10 questions, multiple choice, fairly easy. but just have a click on to that one and click on attempt quiz. And all of the questions will come up for you. It's pretty simple, just a bit of a multiple choice and some true or falses.
And
so
you get 3 attempts at that if you don't don't pass. So
yeah, you do get 3 attempts. You are required to, there's 10 questions, you're required to get 8 out of 10 correct. But again, you have 3 attempts. And if by chance you need a few more attempts, just email us and let us know. Okay, your Module 1 assignment, as Ken has already talked you through. So if you just click on the research topic assignment here, I will just take a PDF of those topics that you've been assigned and we'll link them here just straight after this webinar. Yeah, so please get creative. We've seen some TikTok videos and all sorts of things, really creative assignments that we've had. So we hope to see something creative from your end. But there will be, once you log on, I think I haven't opened submissions yet, I will do that. But as you click on this page, there will be a little button here that says submit. So you just click onto that one, upload your file. I think it opens from 12 o'clock today. So you'll just submit that, upload your file, and that will be how you submit your assignment. Due date for that one is next Monday. So it'll be next Monday before Module 3. So you do have the week to work on that.
Okay. It's ticked over the hour now. So if you've got any questions, email training@SafeSystemSolutions. Log in a couple of minutes early before next session. A bit of trivia. Thank you for your input today. Awesome session.
Thanks, everyone.